This demonstration describes how and when to use cross-cube formulas. To start, we'll actually develop and build a second cube onto which to use as our cross-cube formula. Let's assume that we want to do an exchange rate application where we have our actual values for months for particular regions. Let's now assume that we want to calculate values based on exchange rates. First thing we need to do this is to set up our cube with exchange rates. First thing I'm going to do is add a new dimension that is my exchange rate dimension. Add, edit, and I'm simply going to add one member for now that we're going to call rate. Okay, now I'm going to set up a new cube called exchange rates. To this cube, I'm going to add our actual versus budget dimension, our months dimension, our regions dimension, and our exchange rate dimension. I'm also going to check the numeric data only button since I only want numerical values entered into this cube. Select OK. Select OK. Now I'm going to do a slice on this new cube. Exchange rates. Move these two dimensions and recalculate. Now what I want to do is for each of my actual months, I'm going to enter an exchange rate. I'm going to start with January. So I'll move January and the months down to columns, move my measures up here, and I'm going to enter some information for Canada. 0.5, 0.6, 0.7. Now I'll do the United States. 1, 1.1, 1.2, and a couple for Argentina and Colombia. 0.75, 0.75, 0.85, 0.85, and 0.95. Now that we have some exchange rates in here, how do we build and use those exchange rates to calculate our sales and cost of sales and gross profit based on an exchange rate calculation? First, we'll need to modify our accounts dimension to include the new members that we want to calculate these in. If you look at the slice behind our dimension style, you'll see that there is no account structure in our exchange rates cube. The reason there isn't is because the exchange rates are not based on any account. So first, select Dimensions, Accounts, Edit. I will add two new members called Sales Adjusted by Exchange, and I'll add Cost of Sales Adjusted by Exchange. To keep things consistent, we'll add an aggregate called gross profit adjusted by exchange. I'll create the hierarchy for my gross profit by dragging that as a second hierarchy under the accounts. Move the sales under it and the cost of sales under it as well. Multiply that by -1. Now that I've got my accounts dimension set up for these new calculated values, I will go into my cube and build formulas to calculate those values. So again, we'll use the future year model. I'm going to now define the left-hand side to use those new members that I've defined. I'll do them one at a time. Accounts, sales adjusted by exchange at the detail level, will be calculated equal to a right-hand side that's going to use a value from a different cube. However, I also want to use the value that's in this cube. In order to calculate it, I want to take my current sales in this cube and multiply by them by the exchange rate that's in the other cube. So the first point that I want to define is in the future year model cube, on the accounts dimension, my sales value. Select OK. Multiply that by a point in the exchange rates cube. As you can see, the dimensions when I select the exchange rate cubes change to the dimensions that are in this other cube. So here, I simply want to use my exchange rate value. Once again, the accounts aren't in here, so for every account, it's going to use the same exchange rate. Select OK. Hit semicolon. Check the syntax, and we have no syntax errors. Similarly, I'm going to do the same details for the current cube, for accounts, for cost of good adjusted by exchange rate. Hit OK. Equals. There's again a point in the future year model, which is our current cube, accounts, cost of sales, times the lookup to the future year, the exchange rates cube, exchange rate, rate. Semicolon, check the syntax. And once again, I'll modify this so that it's only doing it at the detail level. Check syntax again, hit OK, select OK, and OK to this. Now I'll move our measure dimension in our other slice so that we can see the new values. As you can see, before we calculated, these were the values all set to 0 since we did not have formulas calculating these values. I will hit recalculate now, and we can see that their new values are based on the exchange rate. The value of sales adjusted by exchange rate is equal to our sales value of 2,220 times our exchange rate, which gives us a value of 1,670. Likewise, the value for cost of sales and the gross profit is calculated by still subtracting the sales from the cost of sales. Since I did the formulas at the detail level, the gross profit is actually calculated by summing the detailed calculations for sales and cost of sales, and then at this level summing those to a total. If there are dimensions shared between the different cubes when you're going across cube, the current member is used when going to that other cube. If there are dimensions that exist in the remote cube that don't exist in the current cube, you must specify the member that you want to pull the value back for. Otherwise, if all dimensions are shared, it's as if you're writing a formula within the current cube.